Howdy, I'm Callum, also known as Northern Dice, and today I'm going to be reviewing Court of Miracles by Lucky Duck Games. It's a 2 to 5 player area control game that has players trying to control different districts in 1800s Paris. Having player tokens in a certain area and filling it up triggers a standoff, which enables a player to play some unknown tokens. 6 unknown tokens gone, and you're the winner. So here we've got Court of Miracles set up for just a 2-player game. If it were a 3 or 4-player game, the only difference here would be that you'd have more player tokens out and each progressive player would get an extra coin. So an example here, blue player is first player, so orange player has gained 1 extra coin. Where we introduce a 3rd player, they'd get 2 coins, a 4th player, they'd get 3 coins, etc, etc. And that's to balance out the fact that blue player gets first pick on where they go. Now, as you can see on the board, it's a bit of a strange shape, but bear with me on that one. The main part of the board is here, which is where you will place your tokens. We've got the market over here, which is where players can go to access things. And we've got the track for the Penniless King with different symbols on it. As the Penniless King travels across the board, he's going to encounter these symbols and he stops on them. If he were to jump over this one, so an example, move 3, he'd stop there instead of continuing the successive 2. Red tokens indicate a specific neighbourhood to have a standoff in. So this neighbourhood would be, this symbol would be for this neighbourhood as the fingers are pointing to there. This symbol for this one, this for this one, this for this one, and I think that one for that one. You'll also notice that there were white symbols, and that is player choice. So let's say that orange player forces the Penniless King onto this point. The orange player can then choose where the standoff would occur. The other thing to take note of with this game is that every player has got the exact same starting setup apart from the coin dependent on player count. So everybody gets this little card, and that is just where you will host your little control tokens when they're not in play. Everybody also starts with 3 player tokens, and those are all identical. So just to flip some over for you, we've got a thug of value 1, a beggar of value 0 but with a coin on it, and the final one is another thug of value 1. Over here in the market you have got access to purchase your right hand man, who is just a right hand fist with 2 power. And all these tokens do different things based on what they are. So the thug value 1 and the right hand man value 2 are just value 1 and value 2, nothing really over that special. The beggar on the other hand, if you have your beggar removed from a neighbourhood because it has been taken over in a standoff, the winning player will have to pay you 1 coin. And you don't just stick with those throughout the entire game. As you play, you have access to this big bag, and it has got a lot of unique tokens in there. Coming on from that, each neighbourhood also has a variable power. So the yellow neighbourhood is the one that would affect this. So this symbol here allows you to draw a new token from the bag and replace one of your old ones. And to do so, you would take one blind, have a look at what it is, choose one of your previous ones to get rid of. So let's get rid of this thug, an example, and you actually put them into the river. And I think that's quite a nice thematic element there, that you are throwing your ex-recruits into the river because you have killed them. They knew all the secrets, they're no longer of use. Your little crime empire has just got a little bit more devious, a little bit more sinister. So the red neighbourhood is the one that allows you to access the market. So let's say you place a token in there. You would then be able to place a control token on one of those spaces by paying by playing the indicated gold. So 4 gold for 1 coin, 5 gold to move the Penniless King twice, 6 gold to unlock your henchman, which is also a 4th token, 7 gold to access 2 cards, and 8 gold to get 3 moves out of the Penniless King. Thing there is that you can only ever go to the market for each individual thing once. You can only purchase 2 cards once. You can only purchase 1 card once, an example. It means that you cannot just gain control of Paris through the use of the market. You then have to have at least control of one of these neighbourhoods if you were to access all 5 of those. The blue district simply gives you an extra card to pick up. The green district gives you 2 gold. And the purple district allows you to move any token on the game board that you have not just placed to any other location, including other people's. So again, in example, I place my orange token here. Other than that orange token, any other piece on the board I can pick up and move. And that can, again, trigger standoffs, and should there be multiple standoffs trigger at once, the player who did that will be the one to choose which order they activate in. The districts themselves have a lot on them too, so you have got these symbols, and they do different things. Rule of thumb, Penniless King movement, gain coin, gain card. Really, if there's a multiple symbol or a times symbol on there, it just means it happens more than once. The other thing to note is that plus symbol. If there is a standoff and it is a complete tie, everybody is of equal standing, whoever is closest to that symbol is the person who gains control, not the player who starts the standoff, which means it can be really important that you move to those locations, and you'll notice with those locations, all of them indicate that the Penniless King moves. It's not like you can just take control of it by going to the best spot and being in the best position. The final component of the game, which is possibly the most powerful, is those cards, and these do lots of different things. I'm not going to go through every single one, but there are a lot to choose from, and the artwork on these is, as you're probably going to see here, absolutely gorgeous. Really, really, really attractive, really thematic for a dingy, dark, poverty-ridden Paris in the Middle Ages. Now, players start off with 2 and can have no more than 4 in their hand, but you can use 1 every turn before any standoff is triggered. And they do a lot of things, and they're all really handy. So as an example here, move one of your renown tokens in play to an uncontrolled neighbourhood. So if you've got this one in this location, and you play that card, you can move it to any other uncontrolled one. Bit of a qualm with that card, because if every single neighbourhood is controlled at any one point, you can't use it, but it just swings and roundabouts. It's timing. We've also got another one that I very much like, Justice. Remove all the rogue tokens from a neighbourhood without triggering a standoff. If you want an area clear or lots of people are trying to take over your neighbourhood, you can play that and it will clear the board for you. The final one. Each player with more renown tokens in play than you must give you 1 coin. Really handy to have, because if you can see that someone is abusing the market like nobody's business and are about to win, if you play that on your turn, they give you 1 coin, they're 1 step behind. It might not stop them from winning, but there does seem to be some sort of pack mentality in the game, that if you've got a 4-player game and 1 is winning, 3 players are going to do everything in their power to almost band together to take them out. As the game progresses, the Penniless King is going to move around the track, and eventually he is going to get to the guillotine. If he gets to that spot, the game ends. In the same way, if any player gets all of their controlled renown tokens out onto the board, the game ends and they win. Should it be a Penniless King ending, it just means whoever has got the most renown tokens out would win. For area control, the game plays incredibly quickly and is incredibly quick to pick up and learn. The only qualm is the fact that all of these tokens do lots of different things, and sometimes it can be quite intimidating, and it can also be a little bit tricky to remember them all. The symbols do sort of help, and they do sort of give you an inkling as to what they do, but if I can find it, there's one that always grinds my gears. This one. So the Knight. Symbolism on here does look quite clear, but it isn't. You're required to pay 2 gold to activate the Knight. Otherwise, the Knight has a value of 0. Really powerful piece if you've got cash to spare, but it's quite hard to understand if you're not familiar with it. In the opposite sense, if you lose, you're able to take a card and gain a coin. But again, it isn't clear. Luckily, like many other games, in these sort of positions where they've got so many different components and it becomes quite asymmetrical as time goes on, there is a nice little rule reference on the back of the rules. And it gives you the rogue abilities, gives you the neighbourhood actions, and it also gives you a little hint as to how some of the plot cards work, meaning that there is a little bit of an FAQ at the back. The rules themselves, ignoring the story on the left hand side, incredibly lightweight, and it's not a case of they've skimped out on anything, it is a case of the game is that easy to pick up. I also like the fact that there is a lot of lore and a lot of story in here as well, which just seems to drive it forward that extra bit further. So we took to Court of Miracles really quickly. It's really easy to get a hang of, and it's really easy to understand the rules, especially with the lovely illustrations and examples. Remembering to use your cards when you're playing is really important. That's the one thing the rules don't seem to make great reference to. It explains how to use them, a little bit about what they do, but it doesn't really explain the weight the cards have on the game, and they have a lot of weight. And it does make a big song and dance about placement, and in all honesty, that isn't the be-all and end-all. Where you place your tokens won't always dictate where you will gain control per se. There's a lot more to the game than simple have the most dudes in a location to gain it. A lot of it is about the subtle deception and convincing your enemy that you have got more or less control in an area than they might anticipate. It's really, really subtle, the bluffing element, but it is there, and it's quite a powerful thing to be able to manipulate in the middle of the game. And being ahead doesn't guarantee you the win either. We found that even if you did have 5 of your tokens out, you could still lose, and I did still lose 3 to 6. Simply on that basis of me not using all of the resources available to me, such as the cards and the neighbourhood abilities as well. The theme throughout is really strong. You genuinely feel like it is 17th, 18th century France, the height of poverty. The king has spent all his money. All the illustrations just show the absolute lowest of society taking advantage of those poor people. And unfortunately, you are one of those, and you genuinely feel like it with the things that you're able to do. We did love the unique styling of the board, but it has got that element of danger. If you stand the game on its side, because of all those jutting out sharp edges, they're going to get blunted the moment that box hits something. And it doesn't interrupt play, and it won't stop you from playing the game. It doesn't change anything, but it doesn't look as pretty. And for me personally, that's a major thing. A lot of people would just look at it and shrug. I like games to have that visual aesthetic because they're well kept as well, looked after. And as much as this is one of those things where it's going to be an accident, everything is really well made, don't get me wrong. But knocking that box and having that big dint on one of the spires of Notre Dame is a bit of a put-off, and I do find myself, when I am playing it, holding onto the board and just trying to squash them down with my finger. But did we enjoy Court of Miracles? Yeah, we did. It's got superb player interaction and quite a bit of take that for an area control game. Controlling the neighbourhood is a really powerful thing, but it's also a really vulnerable area to be in. The moment you've got control of something, if you see 1 or 2 players starting to encroach on it, you feel some sort of responsibility to send your tokens there, even though it's not going to benefit you necessarily. It's tricky because the moment you lose control, someone else gains it. And as much as that is just sort of the way the game goes, it also means that once all the areas have been controlled once, all the areas are then at risk of being defended against. But to be fair, in higher number player counts, you will use your control tokens in the market more than anything. When you have a standoff, there is that wonderful moment where you place your token and remove someone else's. But when it becomes so busy and crowded and people are fighting over the smallest of areas, you'll find the biggest benefit is that market. And you will end up purchasing things that you really don't need because they're cheap. There's 5 spots on the market, which means you only need to control 1 neighbourhood. And it's a completely viable option. But the moment you start pushing for that, everybody else will. And then that changes your gameplay dynamic as well. You have to really stay on the fly with it and be really aware of what everyone else is doing, and especially how they're trying to position their counters to gain their control tokens. At lower numbers, on the other hand, it was a case of we could go to the market once or twice and then control the neighbourhoods. As I've said, I lost 6 to 3 from being 5 up, simply because I didn't make good use of all the areas available to me. My partner managed to use the market enough times to gain that control to only need to kick me out of 1 or 2 neighbourhoods. As soon as she'd done that, she'd won the game. I could not catch up no matter what I did, and it's because I wasn't making great use of those cards. When I did get the hang of the 2-player version, it was like tug of war, but then does come down to that big brain moment of how well have you positioned something, have you got a specific token that does something really special, or are you just going to cash in on the market whilst I'm not noticing? And how you manage that depends on how much of the rope you could pull in that tug of war, for example. Not taking advantage of any element of this game is going to get you the loss, and it's never down to anything random. It's always down to how you play what you get. In high accounts and in low accounts, we never actually saw the Penniless King go to the guillotine without the game ending at the same time because of control tokens. And that isn't a bad thing in itself. In the larger game, when it was 4 of us, someone won the same round that the Penniless King went to the guillotine, and it was a wonderful moment. The game had lasted 50 minutes and 2 of our players were learning at the same time, so it wasn't like the game had overstayed its welcome. But at the same time, it felt like it was ready to finish, so even if they hadn't won it at that point, it'd have been a perfect end. 2-player, on the other hand, you don't ever see the Penniless King move too far because you'll be far too interested in those other locations. Moving the Penniless King only benefits you if you manage to get onto a standoff position, and even then you'll only want to do it if you've got your tokens in the right spots to actually benefit from it. There's absolutely zero point in starting a standoff in some location that no one is in because no one gets anything. At least if someone's got a control token there, their attention drives away from it. You could then start to take away from that by attacking it on the sly. So who is Court of Miracles for? Well, there are some complications in the game. The subtle bluffing element is something that you will be able to easily take advantage of if your other player isn't as adept at games. We thought that this would be perfect as not so much an introduction, but a really light area control game for small groups of gamers, friends who just get together and enjoy a good board game. As a family game, I could possibly see it if everybody playing is fully aware of everything, but again, because of everything available to all the players, it is one of those where you are able to plan 3, 4, 5 moves ahead, and because you're able to do that, you're going to be able to outsmart your opponent if they're not able to keep up with your thought process. The game's size is really deceptive. The box is really large. The board looks very, very, very intimidating to those who are not used to games. And it isn't. This game is a filler game. And that's said with a really positive tone from me because it is the perfect filler between 2 really big heavy games. You play something massive, something really heavy that takes a lot of thought, really drives you down. You need something that is quick fire. You have to think on your feet, play ahead, and have some tactics. And Court of Miracles is that. It is light in terms of its time that it takes to set up and play and learn and pack down. 50 minutes for an area control game is insanely quick, and Court of Miracles executes that beautifully. And in all honesty, even with it being a filler game, it always invites that second game where you can amend your tactics, and quite often we find that is the revenge game where you will endeavour to ensure that one player is unable to succeed at all, and really makes it an aggressive take that area control game, but it works well. And it's not one that you'll have on the table long enough to feel like the game's play's got stagnant. It's really fun and you'll really enjoy every moment of it. So the question is, would we recommend it? And my answer personally is definitely. And speaking to my entire group, the answer was a unanimous yes. We all got introduced to this on that idea that it was going to be area control, and there were those sighs of, oh, this is going to be a big one. And it wasn't for them, and the moment we finished it, their exact words were, can we play again? And the reason for that is because it was so quick, so punchy, everything was happening so fast that you were never given a moment to feel like time was stood still. Analysis paralysis is going to be existing in every single game that you play, no matter what some area. But this is one where there was so much option without consequence that there was no incorrect choice. If you had a game plan, you could maneuver your pieces into those positions to ensure that it was executed. The quality of the components is phenomenal. The wooden little tokens are beautiful. The little cardboard cutouts for your band of rogues fit in there excellently. They don't get stuck, a little bit of a rattle to them, but really nice. The board, as I've said, is gorgeous, but it has that qualm of being knocked. And the cards as well, the illustration is stunning. As I've said, it really fits that theme. It's a bit of a niche theme, mind you, but it's a theme that you will think bit not medieval per se, but quite a good couple of 100 years back. Doesn't look too nice. A lot of poverty, a lot of thievery, backstabbing. It just looks like the sort of penny grabbing era that it's supposed to represent. And the biggest reason I would recommend it is because of how easy it is to pick up, play and put away. It is one that you could learn, play, not enjoy, but don't feel like you've wasted your time. Not like one of those area control games where you get through the entire thing after a good 2.5, 3 hours and you think, I really am not going to get that time back. At least with Court of Miracles, it's over and done with so quickly that you can make that judgment and think, do I need that second game to really, really enjoy this, or do I need the second game to decide whether this is for me? I personally played it once and fell in love. My group played it once and fell in love, and it's just the way it went for us. I can imagine that some groups won't gel with this because it isn't long enough to represent the area control genre, but it takes all sorts. So yeah, just to summarise, I personally would say that this is a really wonderful area control game that really hit the right notes for us. So I would highly recommend this. Thank you ever so much for sticking around.